There's a world inside a man's mind that nobody really understands. He can walk into a room calm and composed, but behind that calmness lives 1,000 unspoken thoughts. The weight of expectation sits heavily on his shoulders, yet he doesn't say a word. Every decision he makes feels like it carries the weight of the world, and even when no one notices, he's constantly trying to protect, provide, and hold it all together. Most men carry battles that no one ever sees, not because they want to hide them, but because the world has convinced them that expressing struggle makes them weak. So they bury the pain under work, distraction, or silence. They tell themselves, I'll figure it out. Even when they are breaking inside, they hold tears that should have been released years ago, and they wear smiles that hide silent wars only God knows about. It's not that men don't feel deeply, they feel everything. But society has taught them to keep their emotions locked behind an armor of strength. They were told that real men don't cry, that they don't need help, that they should always have the answers. And so they suppress, they endure, and they pretend. But that quiet endurance doesn't mean he's fine. It means he's fighting a battle he doesn't know how to explain. Sometimes a man wants to speak, but the words don't come out right. He fears being misunderstood. He fears being judged. He fears that if he opens up, people will see him as less than the protector he's supposed to be. So instead, he stays quiet. He bottles up his pain, not because he's heartless, but because he believes silence is strength, when in truth, silence is slowly destroying him. There's a heaviness that comes with being the one everyone looks to for stability. Men often feel that they can't afford to fall apart because too many people depend on them. They carry the stress of bills, responsibilities, expectations, and personal failures, all while keeping a steady face. And the world applauds his composure, never realizing the price he pays to keep it. Inside every strong man is a boy who still remembers what it feels like to be vulnerable. But over time, he learned that vulnerability was dangerous. He learned that the world rewards stoicism, not softness. So he traded his openness for resilience, his transparency for toughness. And while that toughness helps him survive, it often robs him of peace. The truth is, most men are not emotionless. They are emotionally exhausted. They have been fighting silently for so long that expressing pain feels unnatural. They pray quietly at night, asking God for strength to keep going, for wisdom to lead, for peace to hold them together. And when they wake up the next day, they wear that same steady look again, ready to face the world that has no idea what's going on inside. A man's strength isn't just in what he can carry, but in what he can endure without breaking down. Every time he gets up after being knocked down, every time he holds back anger for the sake of peace, every time he chooses to keep pushing when quitting feels easier. That's strength. That's what most people never see, because his victories happen in silence, not in celebration. Sometimes he feels invisible. People notice when he fails, but they rarely see when he sacrifices. They don't see the nights he stays awake thinking about how to make things better. They don't hear the prayers whispered in frustration, the quiet apologies he makes to God when he feels like he's not enough. And still he shows up, still he keeps going, because somewhere deep inside he knows quitting isn't an option. Every man is fighting a private war that can't be seen, not against others, but against doubt, pressure, fear, and failure. Yet he keeps walking. He keeps carrying. He keeps believing that somehow if he stays faithful, God will meet him in his weakness and give him the strength to keep standing. That's what makes him a man, not perfection, but perseverance. Being the head of a home doesn't mean you sit higher than everyone else. It means you kneel lower. Real leadership isn't about power. It's about purpose. It's not about saying, I'm in charge. It's about saying, I'm responsible. A man's role in his home isn't to dominate. It's to protect, to serve, and to guide. It's carrying the weight of others so they can rest. It's making decisions that benefit the family even when it costs you your comfort. Leadership isn't about who talks the loudest. It's about who sacrifices the most. A real man doesn't lead for praise or attention. He leads because it's his calling. When the storms hit, he doesn't run, he stands. When things fall apart, he doesn't point fingers, he takes ownership, because true leadership begins where excuses end. It's not a position you claim, it's a cross you carry. Too many people think leadership means control, but control is about fear. Leadership is about love. Love that listens, love that provides, love that corrects with patience, not pride. A real man doesn't need to shout to prove he's leading. His consistency speaks louder than his words. The strength of a man isn't measured by how much authority he demands. It's measured by how much love he gives while leading through faith. A true leader serves his home the same way Christ served humanity. With humility and sacrifice, he gives when no one's watching, forgives when no one's apologizing, and loves when no one's easy to love. He doesn't wait for appreciation because he knows his reward comes from God. He leads with prayer, not pride, with presence, not pressure. He carries his home through storms because that's what God built him to do. When a man leads with love, his family feels safe. His wife doesn't fear his strength, she trusts it. His children don't just hear his words, they follow his example. They see him make sacrifices and learn that strength isn't in taking, it's in giving. That's what leadership looks like when it's done God's way. It's not control, it's commitment. It's not about being served, it's about serving even when you are tired. There's a kind of peace that comes when a man understands his purpose, when he realizes that leadership isn't about ego, it's about endurance. The real mark of a leader is not in how many people follow him, but in how well he uplifts the people entrusted to him. The leader of the home sets the tone, and when that tone is rooted in love and service, the whole house feels God's presence. And when a man leads his home through service, heaven pays attention, because that's not weakness. That's divine strength. It takes more courage to humble yourself and lead with grace than it does to command with pride. Leadership isn't about being above your family. It's about being beneath them, holding them up when the world tries to pull them down. That's the kind of leadership that builds legacies. Real love isn't about getting what you want. It's about giving what you have. It's not measured by words, but by sacrifice. Anybody can say, "I love you," but not everybody can live it out when it costs something. The kind of love that changes lives isn't convenient. It's not built on feelings, it's built on faithfulness. And a real man understands that his love for his family is proven not in what he says when things are easy, but in what he does when life gets hard. Love, the way God designed it, is self-giving. It's not about what you receive, it's about what you pour out. When a man truly loves, he gives until there's nothing left, then somehow finds more to give. That's the example Christ left for us, to keep giving, forgiving, serving, even when the world doesn't notice. That's not weakness, that's divine strength, because to keep loving when it hurts, to keep forgiving when it's unfair, that takes the kind of heart that's anchored in God. The problem today is that too many people have confused love with emotion. They think love is about being happy, about getting what they want, about what makes them feel good. But real love isn't selfish, it's sacrificial. It doesn't say, "I'll stay as long as it benefits me." It says, "Even when it's hard, I'm here." Self-giving love doesn't count the cost, it carries the cost. It gives, not because it's easy, but because it's right. That's the kind of love that holds families together when everything else tries to tear them apart. When a man learns to love like that, everything in his life changes. His wife doesn't have to question his loyalty because his actions already answer it. His children grow up watching how he treats their mother, how he handles problems, how he forgives when it's hard. And they learn that real love isn't loud, it's consistent. It's in the late nights when you are exhausted but still show up. It's in the prayers whispered for your family's safety. It's in the patience that stays strong when frustration wants to take over. A man who leads with love is a man who builds peace, because love has a language, and that language is sacrifice. It's the willingness to put someone else's needs before your own. It's being strong enough to apologize first, humble enough to listen, patient enough to understand. That's the kind of love that transforms homes. That's the kind of love that tells your family, "You can rest here. You are safe with me." See, the love of a man is meant to mirror the love of God, steady, forgiving, and unshakable. In the same way Christ laid down his life for humanity, a man lays down his comfort, his pride, and sometimes his dreams to see his family thrive. That's not weakness, that's divine design. Because the truth is, every time you give up something for someone you love, God fills you back up with something greater. Peace, wisdom, and strength that can't be broken by this world. When a man starts living a life of self-given love, his priorities shift. It's no longer about, what do I get? It becomes, what can I give? It's no longer about, who's watching? It becomes, who's depending on me? That's when love becomes legacy. That's when your presence becomes your power. And that's when your life starts leaving a mark that outlives you. Because everything rooted in love never dies. And that's what this world needs more of: men who love not for validation, but from conviction. Men who show up when it's hard. Men who protect what's sacred. Men who understand that true strength is not found in control, but in compassion. When a man walks in that kind of love, he doesn't just lead his home, he changes the atmosphere around him. Becoming a man isn't about age, it's about maturity. There are grown boys walking around in men's bodies, chasing pleasure, avoiding responsibility, running from discipline. And there are young men out there who already carry the weight of their families, who know what sacrifice feels like, who've learned to pray when no one else will. Manhood isn't something you are handed, it's something you earn through pain, perseverance, and growth. It's the moment when excuses stop and accountability begins. Every boy wants freedom, but a real man understands that freedom without responsibility is destruction. Boys want to be served, men want to serve. Boys want attention, men want purpose. Boys talk about what they will do. Men do it quietly and let results speak. The shift happens when you stop waiting for someone to save you and decide to stand up, take the hit, and move forward anyway, because real men don't run from pressure, they grow under it. Manhood starts when you realize that no one owes you anything. The world doesn't care about your excuses, and time won't wait for your hesitation. That's when something inside you clicks, that invisible switch where you decide, it's on me now. You stop blaming your past, your environment, your parents, your struggles, and start saying, this is my life, and I'm going to make something out of it. That's where real strength is born, not from what you have been through, but from what you choose to do about it. A boy seeks validation. A man seeks vision. Boys live for the moment, men live for the mission. A man doesn't chase a pleasure, he chases purpose. He understands that every decision either builds or breaks his future. So he learns discipline. He learns how to say no to what feels good now, so he can say yes to what's right later. Because he knows temporary satisfaction can cost him permanent peace. And once you have experienced the weight of peace, you will never trade it for cheap pleasure again. The journey from boyhood to manhood is painful because it requires letting go of childish habits. It means cutting off laziness, pride, entitlement, and learning humility, endurance, and patience. A man learns to apologize when he's wrong, to lead when no one believes in him, and to trust God when he can't see the next step. That kind of transformation doesn't happen overnight. It takes falling, failing, and getting back up again and again until your character is stronger than your comfort. Every real man has a moment when life tests him, when God strips away the noise and distractions and asks, who are you really? That's the breaking point where a boy would quit, but a man digs deeper. He learns to pray through pressure, to move through pain, and to find peace in God's silence. Because becoming a man in God's way means learning to stand even when you are standing alone. It means doing right even when it costs you something. And the truth is, every man who walks with purpose once had to face himself in the mirror and admit, I'm not there yet. That's humility. That's growth. That's when the boy starts dying and the man starts rising. Because manhood isn't about how strong you look. It's about how strong you stand when nobody's clapping, when life is quiet, when God is testing your patience. That's when he molds you, shapes you, and prepares you for the responsibilities your calling will demand. You start realizing that manhood isn't about how many people respect you. It's about how much you respect yourself. It's about how you carry your name, your word, and your values. It's about becoming someone your family can rely on and your community can look up to. The greatest reward for a man isn't recognition, it's peace. It's knowing he became the man God designed him to be, not because it was easy, but because he refused to stay the same. The difference between a boy and a man isn't what he owns, but what he's willing to give up. A boy fights to prove he's strong. A man knows he doesn't have to. A boy talks about dreams. A man builds them brick by brick. A boy wants to be seen. A man wants to make a difference. And when a man finally understands that, he stops competing with others and starts building within himself, quietly, faithfully, consistently. That's the transformation. When ego turns into empathy, pride turns into purpose, and struggle turns into strength. That's the journey from boyhood to manhood. A process of breaking, rebuilding, believing again, because a man molded by God doesn't just exist. He leads, he protects, he uplifts, and he endures. And through it all, he becomes the kind of man whose presence feels like peace, not pressure. Life isn't gentle, and a man knows it from the start. Storms come for everyone, but the difference is in how a man responds. He could run, complain, or fold under pressure like a boy might, but a man stands. He stands when the bills pile up, When the relationships get messy, when the world doesn't seem fair, standing isn't easy. It's exhausting, painful, and often lonely. But that's where strength is forged. In the middle of chaos, when giving up feels like the easiest choice. A man doesn't wait for storms to pass. He learns to face them head on. He understands that life will throw punches, but those punches aren't meant to defeat him. They are meant to develop him. Every failure, every betrayal, every disappointment is a tool for growth if he allows it. While boys run from pain, men allow it to refine them. They bend without breaking, they adapt without losing themselves, and they keep their focus on the promises that God has placed before them. Pressure reveals character. When a man stands tall in the storm, he isn't just surviving, he's showing what kind of leader he is. His family watches, sometimes silently, sometimes without understanding, but they learn from his example. They learn that being strong doesn't mean being invincible. It means being faithful, consistent, and persistent even when the odds are stacked against you. It means carrying burdens for others, not just for yourself. Standing tall doesn't mean doing it alone. It means leaning on God when your own strength runs out. There's a moment in every storm when a man realizes he can't handle it by himself, and that's the moment true courage is born. That's when prayer isn't just a habit. It becomes a lifeline. That's when faith isn't just a word, it becomes action. Because storms test you not to break you, but to show you who you are when you can't rely on anyone but God. The world teaches men to fear failure, to chase comfort, to avoid challenge, but God calls men to courage. He calls them to face the storm with unwavering resolve, to protect their families even when fear whispers to quit. A man stands not for glory, but for responsibility. He stands not for himself, but for those who depend on him. Standing tall is a choice every day to endure, to lead to love, and to keep moving forward when every fiber of your being wants to turn back. Even when the storm feels endless, even when the night feels too long, a man keeps his eyes fixed on the horizon. He reminds himself that storms are temporary, but the strength built through them is permanent. Every trial survived, every challenge endured, every act of faith in adversity builds a legacy that cannot be taken away. It builds character, it builds resilience, it builds a home where peace can exist even when the world is raging outside. Standing tall in the storm isn't easy, and that's what separates men from boys. Boys crumble under pressure. Boys run from responsibility and boys look for excuses. Men stand even when it hurts, even when they feel alone, even when nobody notices. Men stand because they understand that strength isn't about comfort or convenience. It's about courage, commitment, and conviction. And when a man stands tall in the storm, he not only protects what's precious, he inspires those around him to stand tall too. A man's strength is only as powerful as his ability to control it. Strength without control is destruction. Any boy can throw a punch or shout, but a real man channels every ounce of power he has into something that builds rather than destroys. God gave men strength not to dominate, not to intimidate, but to protect, to provide, and to empower. Real strength is discipline. It is not reckless. It is guided by purpose, rooted in love, and anchored in God's wisdom. Strength without control can ruin everything a man works for. It can break relationships, destroy trust, and leave a trail of regret. But strength with control becomes a force for good. A controlled man can lift a fallen friend, defend the vulnerable, lead a family through uncertainty, and stand firm against injustice. He becomes the rock in his home, the protector in his community, and a living example of God's design for man. Strength alone is meaningless if it isn't tempered with humility and guided by faith. Control begins in the mind. A man who dominates his thoughts dominates his life. He chooses what to focus on, what to speak, and how to act. He doesn't react impulsively to anger, temptation, or criticism. Instead, he prays, he waits, he thinks, and then he acts with wisdom. That discipline is what separates a real man from a boy. Boys lash out when life doesn't go their way. Men pause, evaluate, and respond in a way that honors God and strengthens those around them. A man with controlled strength understands boundaries for himself and for others. He knows that power is not meant to be used to manipulate, but to protect. He knows that influence is not meant to dominate, but to encourage. He knows that authority is not meant to demand, but to serve. That's why a man of God carries himself with confidence, but not arrogance. He is firm, but not cruel. He is strong, but never oppressive. Every act is measured. Every word weighed, every decision deliberate. Even in moments of pressure, a controlled man remains steady. When insulted, he responds with patience. When betrayed, he responds with wisdom. When challenged, he responds with faith. His strength is quiet, not loud. It doesn't need to prove itself because the fruit of his discipline speaks for itself. People may underestimate him at first, but over time they recognize a presence that is unshakable, grounded, and powerful, not through fear, but through integrity. The ultimate control comes when a man submits his strength to God. He prays not to be stronger than others, but to be strong enough to do God's will. He seeks guidance on how to lead, how to love, how to protect. He understands that natural strength alone is fleeting, but strength rooted in prayer, wisdom, and obedience to God is eternal. This kind of strength can endure storms, inspire families, and leave a legacy that no culture, circumstance, or enemy can destroy. Strength under control is also about teaching. A man models restraint for his children, patience for his spouse, and honor for his community. He shows that true power is not in domination, but in discipline. Boys see quick gains and immediate gratification. Men see long-term impact and lasting influence. They understand that how they wield their strength today will determine the lives of those they love tomorrow. Strength with control is a shield, a guide, and a blessing, not just for himself, but for everyone his life touches. A real man doesn't measure his worth by what the world applauds. He doesn't chase trends, opinions, or fleeting popularity. Courageous men stand firm on God's word, even when society says otherwise. They don't compromise their values for convenience, comfort, or acceptance. Culture will always try to redefine what it means to be a man, but a man anchored in faith doesn't bend to the shifting winds of approval. His foundation is God, not the applause of men. Too many men today are losing themselves because they follow culture instead of calling. They are quick to conform, to mimic, to adopt what's popular, even when it contradicts God's design. But courage means saying no when everyone else says yes. Courage means standing when everyone else sits down. Courage means holding the line in your home, in your community, and in your own life, even when it's uncomfortable or lonely. The world wants men to be selfish, aggressive, and self-absorbed. It tells men to pursue pleasure, power, and wealth at any cost. But God calls men to selflessness, sacrifice, and service. Courageous men see beyond temporary gain. They understand that pleasing God always outweighs pleasing people. They are willing to take the heat, face criticism, and endure misunderstanding because they know their ultimate accountability is to the Lord, not the culture around them. Standing against culture takes discipline. It takes courage to reject instant gratification for eternal value. It takes courage to love when love is ignored, to give when giving is overlooked, to pray when prayer feels unnoticed. Men who bend to God's word don't seek validation from peers. They seek guidance from heaven. That obedience becomes their compass, their strength, and their shield against a world that wants to weaken them at every turn. A courageous man understands the cost of leadership. He knows that if he doesn't take a stand, someone else will, often for the wrong reasons. He recognizes that his home, his family, and his community need him to rise above compromise. He knows that the legacy he leaves isn't about fame or fortune. It's about faithfulness, integrity, and the mark he makes on the hearts of those he leads. Real men don't follow culture. They shape it through example. Bending to culture is easy. Courage is hard. Boys want comfort and convenience, but men embrace sacrifice and responsibility. Courageous men choose to walk the narrow path, the path that honors God, strengthens their families, and transforms communities. They understand that true influence comes not from conformity, but from conviction. And conviction demands courage because standing firm often invites opposition, criticism, and even rejection. When a man chooses courage over conformity, he inspires others to do the same. His children learn to live by principle, not by popularity. His wife sees strength tempered with love. His friends witness integrity in action. And even when the world pushes back, the man rooted in God stands tall, unshaken, and consistent. Culture may change around him, but his commitment to God's design never wavers. Courageous men are the ones who bend to no one but God, and in doing so, they build a life, a family, and a legacy that cannot be broken. Leadership in a home isn't about authority or control. It's about love, sacrifice, and guidance. A man who leads like Jesus understands that his role is to serve, not to dominate. He carries the weight of his family's well-being on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a responsibility and a privilege. He leads not because he wants recognition, but because he is called to protect, provide, and nurture. His leadership is sacrificial, anchored in humility, and guided by prayer. Leading like Jesus means putting others first, even when it costs you. It's in the small decisions, choosing patience over anger, kindness over pride, presence over convenience. It's in the late nights when you are exhausted but still stay to listen, to guide, and to pray with your children. It's in the quiet moments when your spouse needs reassurance, encouragement, or partnership. True leadership is not flashy or loud. It is steady, consistent, and selfless. Jesus led by example. He didn't just preach, he demonstrated love through action. He washed feet, healed the hurting, and gave himself fully for others. That's the model for a man in his home. Words are not enough. Your family needs to see love in action in the way you provide for them, protect them, and guide them toward God. They need to see sacrifice without complaint, patience without irritation, and faithfulness without hesitation. A man who leads like Jesus understands the power of humility. Leadership is not about asserting dominance. It's about taking responsibility. It's about admitting mistakes, apologizing when wrong, and being willing to learn and grow alongside your family. A humble leader listens, encourages, and uplifts rather than criticizes or controls. He recognizes that authority is not a weapon to wield, but a tool to serve and bless others. Prayer is the foundation of godly leadership. A man who leads like Jesus prays without ceasing for wisdom, strength, and protection for his family. He models reliance on God, showing that his authority is not from his own strength, but from obedience and submission to the Lord. Through prayer, he seeks guidance in every decision, strength in every trial, and grace in every interaction. His family sees that true power flows from God, not from pride or position. Leading like Jesus requires courage. It's not easy to make decisions that honor God when the world pushes in a different direction. It's not easy to sacrifice comfort, desires, and personal ambitions for the well-being of your spouse and children. It takes resilience to lead with integrity, faithfulness, and patience, even when results are slow or unseen. Courage is the heart of leadership because it allows a man to act rightly, even when fear and doubt try to hold him back. When a man leads like Jesus, his family flourishes. His children grow up learning values of faith, respect, and responsibility. His spouse experiences love, support, and security. His household becomes a place of peace, stability, and spiritual growth. Leadership in God's way is transformative, not just for the man himself, but for everyone around him. And that's the true legacy of a man who follows the example of Christ, a life marked by service, love, sacrifice, and unwavering faith. A real man understands that his first responsibility is to protect his family. Protection is not just about shielding them from physical danger. It's about creating an environment where love, faith, and stability can thrive. He guards their hearts, minds, and spirits from the chaos of the world. He doesn't allow fear, negativity, or compromise to infiltrate his home. Protection is proactive, not reactive. It requires vigilance, wisdom, and courage, because danger is often invisible until it's too late. Providing for a family goes beyond financial support. It's about ensuring their needs are met physically, emotionally, and spiritually. A man provides guidance, stability, and encouragement. He works tirelessly not for recognition, but because he knows that his family's well-being rests on his shoulders. Providing isn't a job, it's a calling. It means sacrifices, long hours, and sometimes saying no to personal comfort so that those he loves can flourish. A man who protects and provides knows the power of prayer. He doesn't rely solely on his own strength or intellect. He turns to God for wisdom, patience, and guidance. Prayer becomes his armor and his compass. It's not a ritual, it's a lifeline. When challenges arise, he doesn't panic or despair. He prays. When he faces decisions, he doesn't guess or rush. He prays. Prayer aligns his heart with God's will and empowers him to act with courage and clarity. True protection also means emotional vigilance. A man guards against bitterness, anger, and frustration that could harm his family. He protects their hearts by modeling forgiveness, patience, and respect. When conflict arises, he addresses it with calmness and wisdom, never lashing out in pride or impatience. His home becomes a haven because he refuses to allow negativity to fester under his watch. Strength without wisdom can destroy, but strength guided by prayer shields those he loves. Providing includes setting a vision for the future. A man guides his family in faith and purpose, showing them how to walk in God's path. He invests time in teaching values, instilling discipline, and modeling integrity. Money and material goods are temporary, but guidance and character building are eternal. When a man provides in this way, he not only meets the present needs of his household, but shapes the legacy they will carry forward for generations. Prayer is the foundation of everything a man does. It fuels his leadership, strengthens his patience, and directs his decisions. He prays not just for blessings, but for protection, wisdom, and discernment. He prays for the spiritual growth of his children, the faithfulness of his spouse, and the guidance to make the right choices even when the world tempts him to compromise. A praying man leads with humility, not arrogance, because he knows he cannot do it alone. A man who protects, provides, and prays becomes a pillar of stability. His family can trust him